What if the most important part of any health journey isn't getting it right, but learning how to come back when you get it wrong? Welcome to the Aging Well podcast, where we explore the science, stories, and strategies that help us live longer, healthier, and more purposeful lives. I am your host, Dr. Jeff Armstrong, an exercise physiologist with a passion for making science simple and life better as we age. My guest is Connie Bennett, a motivational speaker, health and lifestyle journalist, and best-selling author. Connie has spent her career helping people rethink their relationship with food, health, and self-worth. Her latest book is titled, I Blew My Diet, Now What? The easy, proven 21-day plan to drop pounds and bounce back boldly. It's a refreshingly honest look at what happens when life, stress, and imperfection collide with our best intentions, and how we can recover without shame. Connie and I will talk about resilience, habit change, mindset, and why learning how to bounce back might be one of the most important skills for aging well. Connie, welcome to the Aging Well podcast. It's my pleasure to have you on here. This is going to be a fun conversation today.
I'm so glad to be here.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you from journalism to your openness about your life as a recovering sugar addict.
You know, I've never heard it described that way, but I guess that would be a good characterization. My background is as a journalist, and I was a sugar-addicted journalist, and that went on for years until I was besieged by 44 ailments, headaches, mood swings, heart palpitations, difficulty concentrating, just it went on and on. The mood swing didn't go over too well with the ex-boyfriend. Anyhow, so I then quit sugar on doctor's orders. This is after years of trying to find out what was wrong with me. Like, people thought, that I was a little off kilter, which I was. But no medical professional had connected the dots. That, hey, what I was eating was making me behave very strangely and feel really badly. So I quit sugar, and for more than a decade, I did very well. And I didn't just quit sugar. I also quit ultra-processed carbohydrates, what I now call carbage for carb garbage.
I like that.
Yeah, it's fun. And I ate very well for over a decade. And during that time, I put my journalism background to good use, and I became absolutely fascinated. How could I have quit sugar and processed carbs and did I mention I had 44 ailments? All 44 ailments vanished. Poof. Wow. And that led to my first book, Sugar Shock, and then ultimately my second book, Beyond Sugar Shock. And I also became a certified health coach and a life coach and a tapping practitioner. But more than a decade ago, I blew my diet, which is coincidentally the name of my next book, my new book. I had been living in New York City, and my mom had become terminally ill, and I moved across country to be with her. And it was the most grueling year of my life. You'd think after all these times of talking about this that I wouldn't get upset each time, but no, still happens. It was a really, really challenging time. And it was like she passed away, and within, minutes, hours, maybe a day, I couldn't pass up on ultra-processed carbs. And so for months, I just stuffed my face with crunchy, greasy, salty movie popcorn and any carbs I can get my hands on. And within a few months, more like weeks, within a few weeks, I packed on 21 pounds. I developed insulin resistance. Most of those 44 ailments came back. I felt awful. I mean, it was bad enough to grieve the loss of my mother, but then I had all these new symptoms and ailments, and I was, emotionally a yo-yo, everything about it was just horrible. Probably worse than I was when I'd been hooked on sugar, because then I had the added component of grief and then PTSD. But after a few months of that, and, I was recovering over the loss of my mom, I became possessed, I should say, obsessed with one question. Okay, if I, of all people, who had written 2 books about sugar, so I darn well knew that eating processed carbs or sugar was not good for me, and it could lead to a bunch of ailments. If I couldn't pass it up, what about the millions of other people out there? And the other part of it was, why? Why did I fall? Why did I hit rock bottom like that? Why did I succumb to those temptations? They're inevitable temptations. No matter what you're going through in your life, you're going to come across temptations. In fact, I like to say that you're in the junk foods jungle. But after losing my mother, I lost myself. And I refound, I shouldn't say this, but I refound processed carbohydrates. And I became hooked. Boom. So then I was on a mission. Why did I fall? Why did I hit rock bottom? Why did I again succumb to carbs? And what I came up with is that there were 21 reasons that we eat badly. And I had gone through one of the big 4 binge triggers, which was the loss of my mother and grief. And that is one of the biggest reasons that people eat badly. They are going through a heartbreaking time. Would you like to know the other 3 big binge triggers?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the second one, well, let me back up for a minute. So when I was in the middle of all this, I was trying to pick myself up off the ground. I was going to all these self-help conferences, and I met lots of people, mostly women, and they would tell me, and we would share stories, and I said, I gained all this weight after the loss of my mom. And I would hear these stories about women who'd gained a bunch of weight after their divorce. And another person after the loss of a loved one. And another person after some kind of trauma. And I'm like, oh my God, this is what is setting us off. So the second big binge trigger is, so the first one, the type of eating you do, I came up with catchy phrases. So I was doing what I call heartbreak binging. People who are going through divorce or separation might have been doing something called divorce devouring, or any kind. I have a whole bunch of different ones related to relationships. And then another reason that people may eat badly has to do with trauma, and so they may be doing what I call comfort crunching. So what's the fourth one? Sorry about that. So we got the heartbreak binging, divorce devouring, comfort crunching, caregiving shopping, which is quite apropos. So caregiving shopping is the fourth one, but there's 17 other reasons. And I would have to say that the absolute biggest reason that people are overeating is that we are just constantly besieged by temptations. We go into a place I call the junk foods jungle, and temptation is inevitable. Yeah. And so we need to have some simple tools that we can use whenever that temptation arises.
Yeah, it's interesting that you didn't really fall off the wagon, so to speak, when you were caring for your mom. It wasn't until the grief.
It was right
until
after
her passing. Yeah.
Literally, yeah.
And so we all have the different reasons why we kind of lose track of our healthfulness.
Yeah. Well, and that was kind of interesting. So I meditate regularly. I've been doing it for, I don't know, maybe a decade and a half, 2 decades. And yet, oops, I forgot to meditate while my mom was dying. I mean, the time that I most needed it. The time I most needed it, I wasn't doing it, which is kind of, and I think it's typical. Like when times really get tough, it's very easy to forget those really great, simple, powerful tactics that can help us to what I say, stand strong when you're in the junk foods jungle.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's challenging. I mean, one of my mantras is from Gail Sayers' autobiography, I am third. It's my God is first, my family and friends are second, and I am third. And, I've been evaluating that a lot over the last couple of years and realizing that, we really struggle in balancing this kind of self-care and other care. And it's easy to get really out of whack with that, there are times when we need to be a little bit more self-centered, and then there are times when we need to be much more other-centered. And so I've kind of focused on, we have this need to be more self-transcendent, where we're covering both, areas, where we're not going to be spending too much time to where we're totally subservient or, kowtowing or whatever to other people, or giving up part of ourselves entirely for someone else. We have to kind of do both. I don't know if that makes any sense to what I'm saying.
No, it's very, very important. But I dare say that we have to put ourselves first, no matter what, because you want to put yourself into balance so that you can be there for your loved ones, so you can be there for other people. So one of the things, so it took me more than 7 years to write this most recent book, I Blew My Diet, Now What? And there's a reason. And what I decided was, okay, I knew that people are going to be busy. They got, loved ones to take care of, errands to run, jobs to go to, bills to pay, families to take care of. And so it has to be something that they can fit into their very busy schedules. So one tactic, while my mom was, dying, and so she was sending me on errands. And I was just unbelievably stressed out. And I literally created this, maybe a 60-second technique, because I was just so stressed out. I'm supposed to go here, go there. So while she's giving me the directions of, go here, go, I just breathed in deeply. And I was thinking, peace of mind is mine now. And so I breathed into my diaphragm, and then I breathed out. Peace of mind is mine now. And literally, maybe less than 60 seconds. And I would just so throughout the day, then I'm going about doing her errands. So it was like this mini meditation, just a quick breathing exercise. And it was amazing how quickly it calmed me. But since I'm a journalist, then I became, fascinated, okay, does this really work? I mean, did it just work for me? And yes, it works. And diaphragmatic breathing is just so powerful. And there's, substantive amounts of research. But that was one of the techniques. So I called it the, I had to change the name because somebody else came up with a name that was similar. But anyhow, it's basically just a very simple diaphragmatic breathing. I called it the pom-pom process. So peace of mind is, and then peace of mind. So peace of mind in, peace of mind out. And so my book actually, and what I've been working on, what I was working on was to find these science-based tactics that could work quickly while you're dealing with whatever you're dealing with.
So you didn't entirely give up on meditation. You just probably shifted gears in terms of how you were doing it and the amount of time you were spending with it.
Good point. Yeah. I mean, I was normally doing, now I do, 10, 20 minutes in the morning, sometimes half hour. This was 30 seconds there. And actually those, you can do it in the post office. You can do it wherever you are. You can be with your family. You can be with your kids. And it's like boom. And there's research to back it up too. So that's just one very, very simple technique that you can do, because you want to calm yourself down so that you are there for your loved ones and yourself.
If you're enjoying the Aging Well podcast, be sure to like, subscribe, or follow on your favorite platform so you will never miss an episode. And if you find our conversations helpful, please share the podcast with a friend, because aging is something we're all doing and we're better at doing it together. And support our guests in this podcast financially by visiting the affiliate links in the episode description below and use the links or codes provided for discounts on products we have vetted and feel comfortable recommending to our valued viewers and listeners. Thank you, and now back to the podcast. So I love this, the premise of your book, I Blew My Diet, because we all do it. We all do it. It just depends on what's the stimulus. And you said there's 21 stimuli to do it. So in that latest book, I think it's a very human premise. Why do you think people struggle so much with recovery after those setbacks? Because we're all going to blow our diets, but the hard part is the recovery.
Well, I think so there was some really interesting research I came across. And this one scientist was talking about how, actually there were two scientists, they did studies together. And if you eat one or two bites or whatever, you think you've eaten more than you should. It's like, oh, forget it. I blew my diet. I just, whatever. What the hell? And literally, I discovered, I call this the what the hell effect. They're literally, the scientists have a more highfalutin name for it. But literally, I invite your listeners to just think about this. You're tempted, you eat a few bites and you're like, oh, what the hell? I'll just go all out for the rest of the day. And it could be the whole weekend. And so the challenge then is to pick yourself up after you have that what the hell situation. And yeah, it's again, we're being tempted all the time. On top of compounding that is that you're dealing with whatever you're dealing with, and it doesn't have to be one of the four bitch triggers. It could be you're very stressed out. It could be that your kids are just driving you. Your kids are just annoying the heck out of you. Your loved one and you're having some kind of challenges. It could be whatever you're going through. And for a lot of people, it's very easy to turn to food.
I have that more of a, why the heck am I doing this? When, you eat something, maybe you haven't eaten a donut in a while. And I have not had a donut in a long, long time because I know the why the hell comes along. Because you take that first bite, and it's like, it was okay. You take that second bite, it's like, why am I eating this? Then you just keep eating it. It's like, why am I doing this? This tastes horrible. I don't want this, but you just keep doing it.
Well, actually, why is one of my absolute favorite words in the English language. Because, and literally in my new book, in which I outline 21 reasons that people eat badly, that one section of the book, so it's about a third of the book, delves into the why. Why are you doing this? Because I believe that once you know your why, then you can find out your how. How do I change my behavior? And I think a lot of people, a lot of us want to figure out, okay, how do we do it? But that's like putting the cart before the horse. You're not going to be able to make any effective change until you know, well, why did you do it to begin with? And that's why it was so helpful for me to see, and I found some fascinating research that, so actually it made a lot of sense. My mom died, I blew my diet. I pigged out like crazy, packed on 21 pounds. Then, because I'm a health expert, I felt like a fraud. That motivated me to get back on track. But then once you figure out why you did it, you also want to figure out your why. Why do you want to eat better? So for me, it was pretty simple. I wanted to eat better because I wanted to feel better. I felt awful. I had, dozens of ailments again, and weight gain. And so that was motivation enough. But everybody so once you determine what your why for eating better is, that's half the battle.
Now, do you address why not in your book as well? Because for a lot of us, it's like, we know why we did it, but we don't know why we just can't get back on track, or, why we're not getting back on track?
Why not? Well, that's a very good question. Why not do it? You know, maybe our why is not big enough. I mean, you have to really, really want to change. But you want to really, really want to change once you know what benefits you're going to get on the other side. If you don't focus on those benefits. So I think a lot of people, when they're trying to eat better, and by the way, I tend to shy away from the word diet.
I don't like the word diet either.
Not really, what I'm really talking about is just eating healthy foods, and whatever diet you want to follow. If you want to follow, the program I recommend, which is it's like a modified keto, or whatever diet you follow. Because even if you don't want to follow my recommended meal plan, that was developed by these nutritionists, you can benefit from knowing, exactly what is leading you to that place. I forgot. I lost my train of thought here.
That's all right. Yeah, when we talk about diets, I don't like the term diet either, because first of all, it's die with a T.
I know. It's got die in it. It's like, oh God, that's awful.
But also, it's, we can lose weight eating a Twinkie diet. I mean, there's been evidence of that, where a nutritionist at, I think it was the University of Kansas or Kansas State, that did a month of just eating, he called it the Twinkie diet. I think he ate more than just Twinkies, but he actually improved his blood chemistry and all these things by just simply eating fewer calories, even though it was all junk calories. Now, he wouldn't recommend, and nor would I recommend doing that. But what we find is that there's
low quality foods.
Yeah.
I like to recommend have some colorful quality foods, that are from,
we want to eat healthy, but you can gain weight eating healthy. I've done a keto diet before and gained weight. And it's like, you shouldn't be able to do that. But if you're eating too many calories, you're going to gain weight. So, when we're talking diet, it's hypocaloric, eucaloric, and hypercaloric. And those are your choices. And if you want to eat paleo, you want to eat keto, you want to eat high carb, low carb, doesn't matter. Biggest thing is just eat less and stay on the wagon, right? And
choose better, make better choices.
Yeah. Right. And so what does bounce back boldly?
Better choices because you want to feel better.
Yes. So you use the phrase bounce back boldly. What does that really mean? Not just physically, but emotionally.
Well, I was thinking about what transformation I want the readers to have. And I want them to be able to not to get back to where they were. I mean, that's nice. But that, it's nice. But it's not like nice, like wonderful, And so the idea of bounce back boldly is that not only do you just bounce back to where you were, but you're better, you're happier, you have more energy, you love life more, like everything is better. So, I alternately use the phrase, bounce back better. So, you're a better person than you were before that. So, after what I went through, I like to think that I'm a different, I'm a Connie 2.0 or 3.0, whatever, after what I went through, because then let me take those horrific experiences and use that to help other people, so that they also can bounce back boldly or bounce back better.
Okay. And so tell us about the 21-day plan in your book. Why 21 days, and what's happening during that reset?
Well, I did have a limited number of pages. There's been some interesting research about 21 days, and some research says it actually does take longer. But I just wanted a program that was doable, that could help people get back on track. And then if they want, they literally can repeat some of the exercise. The other part of it is that what I sought to do was to identify some what I call feasts. So fast, easy, awesome, simple, tested strategies, feasts, not food feasts, they're not edible, but they're feasts, feast for your life or whatever. so the criteria to be a feast is that they had to be able to use them quickly. I'll give you an example. Somebody I was working with kind of approached me with this interesting attitude, and the day was not going well. And so I said, can we just pause for a little bit? So I have these tapping meditations. Thank you, Tapping Solution people. And because they have these scripts. I mean, they have all kinds of stuff. They have an app, they have scripts, they have, I'm a walking advertiser with these guys. But it's really, tapping or EFT, emotional freedom technique, is amazing. And it is research backed. There are tons of studies that validate its effectiveness. So basically, this situation with this person, I took a little time out, and I took me maybe 2 minutes to tap, to go through this sequence. You tap on different acupressure points, and the rest of the day went really well. And so that is one of my favorite tactics, tapping or EFT. But anyhow, so in those 21 days, I present a number of techniques. You pick the ones that work best for you. You don't have to use them all. I want this to be doable for you. So tapping is one of the techniques that can be used, and you get really quick reactions, really quick, emotional and physical benefits. And oh my God, the research is just fascinating. I mean, I even was in touch with 2 or 3 scientists, and I looked at their studies, and it just amazing. So in 3 weeks, I present a few tactics and help you get back on track quickly. And then you can, reuse those tactics when you need to.
Nice. And so from your perspective, what role does shame play in failed health changes? And how do we go about breaking that cycle?
Yeah, I think that we don't hear enough about shame. And I think part of it, we have heard some from Brene Brown and some other people, but the irony is that we're ashamed to admit that we feel shame. I mean, it took me 7 years to, quote, come out of the closet and say, here I am, and look, I wrote 2 best-selling books about sugar, and oh my God, I was so ashamed. How could I have eaten so badly? And it was fascinating. But I think that coming face to face with your shame can really be powerful. And there are some very, very simple ways that you can face that shame. One of them, is simply writing about it, where you're confessing to your journal. You don't even need to talk to a friend or a therapist, well, you could if you, obviously if you feel that you need, or, if your doctor feels you need therapy. But just coming face to face with your feelings of shame can be quite powerful. And it's easy to move beyond it. Maybe, you may need to take several tries or whatever, but, who knows how long it's going to take. Shame has its own timeline. But I think for me, since I'm a recognized author, it was a challenge to confront that shame and then to come out and speak about it to others. And that's just what's really interesting. So I started reading reviews of my book, and these are totally different kind of reviews than I got from my first 2 books, Sugar Shock and Beyond Sugar Shock. Because in this one, I mean, I own up to the fact that I blew my diet big time. I felt ashamed. I was appalled. I was aghast. I just, I wanted to hide out from the world. Oh my goodness. And my colleagues, I mean, I was embarrassed to face them. And that's a whole other interesting thing that can happen, which is that you need to really protect that shame. In other words, you need to protect yourself as to who you feel comfortable admitting about that shame to. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And that you want to talk to people who are going to give you compassion and encouragement and insights.
Let's take a brief pause to recognize one of the affiliate offerings that helps support the Aging Well podcast. As always, we're not sponsored and we don't accept paid placements. But when you use our affiliate links, it helps us continue producing this show. One product I genuinely enjoy is Firefly Organic Coffee, available through Jigsaw Health. It's thoughtfully sourced, organic, and crafted for people who care about what goes into their bodies, not just what wakes them up. I vetted it, I drink it myself, and I appreciate the care behind how it's made. If you'd like to support the podcast and check out Firefly Organic Coffee, you'll find the link in the show notes. Now, back to the show. That kind of leads to my next question is what about the external shame? What impact does that have? Because from what I'm hearing from you, it's like we're more likely to give shame to ourselves, but we also live in this age where, we're separated from people because, all communication happens on the internet and people can hide behind anonymity. And so, like you as an author, somebody could say, look at that. She wrote all these books about, not eating sugar. And look at her. She's, gained 21 pounds and off the sugar wagon. And what about that kind of shame? How do we deal with that? And how do we break that cycle?
I think when I was working on my last book, I Blew My Diet, Now What? And after I lost my mom, I actually spent quite a bit of time off social media. I'm not saying this is the way that everybody should do it, but for me, I needed to come back to me to own up to what was going on with me, and just kind of not having all that social media noise helped me. I mean, there were a bunch of things that helped me. Oh, and I did go into therapy. That was very, very important. I like lots of therapy and grief support groups and all kinds of stuff. Because social media can play into, those feelings. You also, you have to be strong enough, but this is as an author or as a thought leader, you have to be strong enough to take, whatever criticism is going to come your way. And so there's something really powerful about hitting rock bottom and then bouncing back better, bouncing back boldly. It's like the Connie today is not the Connie that was, 10 years ago. Like, I'm a different person. And yeah, shame played played a big role in all of that. And now it feels, oh my God, it's such a relief. Like, it's just so heartwarming to hear that readers are saying, what Connie wrote is relatable, and they loved hearing about my stuffing my face with movie popcorn. I mean, that first chapter, it took me weeks, months to write. I must have rewritten it hundreds of times. But the fact that people understand you, we all want to be understood. And we also want to, I feel motivated. I want to help people to get over what it was that I went through, because I know there are millions of people who are going through just that.
So, how do people's relationship with food tend to change as they move from midlife to later in life?
Huh. That's a good question. Um, I'm not sure I would necessarily put a time frame as in like your certain age or your midlife or your, because I think it really, because you could be like 18 and going through stuff, or 25 or 75. I mean, who knows? But I think in our fast paced, hectic society, we've lost touch as to why we eat. And that sounds really trite. But seriously, okay, why do we want to eat? We want to eat because we want to have the energy to, play pickleball. That's one of my new hobbies. To, pick our kids up, to have the energy. I mean, you're the one who can help them develop the strength to do that. But
Yeah.
so that we have the energy to do the things that we love. And so it really doesn't matter what time of life we're in. It matters when we think about who do we want to be at the end.
Do you think part of that is it's less about midlife, later in life, early in life, and more of what kind of life as opposed to when in life? Like, what are we going through at this point in our life?
I like that very much. Yeah. What kind of life do you want to live?
Yeah, because it's, I think, highly individualized.
But not just that. What kind of person do you want to be? So when I was like upset, there were kind of two different phases where I was hooked on junk foods. So there was the Connie hooked on sugar, and then there was the Connie hooked on carbs. Okay, so there were years in between. But I'm telling you, the kind of person that Connie hooked on sugar and the kind of person that Connie hooked on carbs was, I don't know that you would have wanted to be my friend. But the Connie who's not, the Connie who's free, I don't want to say not, I don't want to use the net word not, who eats cleanly, that I'm a better person. So you raise a good point, that who you want to be, who do you want to be in the world? And I think a lot of people lose that connection. Like what you're going to have at this next meal can affect who you are later that day, the next day, the day after, and every meal. So that's the thing. I want to remind people that what we eat can affect not just how we feel, but who we are. I like to say that when you eat better, you feel better. When you eat better, you are better. So
how can someone tell the difference between healthy discipline and unhealthy rigidity?
That's a very interesting question. I think you'll know. I think that we're now in the middle of February, and I had it recently declared National Bounce Back Month. And there's a reason. And that is that, okay, so in January, many of us blew our New Year's resolutions. And you may appreciate this because I injured my back in January or December. So I did not work out as much because I was in pain. And it was difficult. I have I don't want to mess with the camera, but I have this really cool Pilates chair, and I could barely do things. Well, it turns out that it was just sitting on this particular chair was crunching my back in such a way. It took me a month to figure this out. I mean, my Pilates teacher and I were like, what was I doing wrong? But the point is that in January, I didn't exercise as much as I would have liked. So you know what? Hey, it's February. It's National Bounce Back Month. It's time to start again. And so we can start anytime we want. It doesn't have to be February 10th or February 15th. It can be whatever day you decide it is. You can bounce back whenever works for you. And so I'm just encouraging February to be a good time, because a lot of people, about 80% of people who made New Year's resolutions blew them.
So in another year, it'll be March will be bounce back month, and we'll just keep pushing it out every year. I really like the favor that I don't do resolutions, and I'm somewhat opposed to them just because people tend to wait until January to make these dramatic changes in their life, and they do it for a week or two, and then they fall off and they feel guilty for it, or they feel like they can't do anything about it, when it's like, okay, it's another day today. What are you doing today to, make the changes that you wanted to make January 1st? Because February, March, April, you can do it. You just have to do it.
And you know what? Each day, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, each day you can choose to bounce back boldly. Each day you can. So I'm actually very excited, because I think today is going to be the day that I get to play pickleball for the first time in about 6-8 weeks because of my back pain. So I'm starting over. I'm so excited.
Sounds good. I have yet to play pickleball yet, but I don't know. I'm never good in racket sports, so I don't think I'll ever take up pickleball, but it's amazing how many people have just gathered to that new sport. So.
Well, I used to play tennis, and some guy fell on my wrist skiing, and I haven't quite healed it just yet. So pickleball is less demanding on that wrist. But yeah, I'm a big fan of it now.
Yeah, a lot of people have. I always joke I'm not good at any sport that involves a round ball. Which is almost everything, but even football I wasn't that great at, but it was a bit more of an oblong ball, and I was a little bit better at it. But I wrestled in school because I couldn't do ball stuff. So,
and I could have never wrestled.
No, you never know. But in your work as a journalist and as a speaker, what patterns do you see most in people who succeed long term? I'm sure you've crossed a lot of paths with people that we're all jealous of because they don't seem to go through these periods of relapse that we all go through.
I think that a lot of these people, or maybe they don't, but I'm going to recommend that they do. One of the traits that's so important is to give yourself self-compassion. And when I was getting over, pigging out on carbs, I started talking to myself. I actually went to a week-long self-compassion course with these experts in self-compassion. And I was really astounded at how a little bit of self-compassion can go such a long way. It was amazing to learn about this. It was just amazing. So I started talking to myself, Connie, it's totally understandable that you were overeating and picking out in that way. You went through just such a tough time. You can literally give yourself the self-compassion. And that is one of the tactics that I recommend that people do. I actually combine it with, I'm realizing I combine it with another one, because there's another technique, and that's that there's some really interesting research that if you talk to yourself in the third person, that can be very, very effective. So you can say, hey, so, we'll pretend it's me, hey, Connie, so we're combining the self-compassion and the sweet self-talk. It's okay that you did that. You'll be okay. You can do it. You can bounce back. Anyhow, that's another really wonderful technique. I would like to share one technique before we run out of time, which is one of my favorite techniques. Would that be okay?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. I always like to talk about this one, but I have to back up a little bit first. So, as I mentioned, after losing my mother, I was pigging out of movie popcorn. I would say that of the 21 pounds I gained, probably 20 of them came from the movie popcorn. Crunchy, greasy, salty, yuck. Ugh. So for months, I needed to escape. So I would still go to movies. For some reason, I don't know, for some reason I really liked to go into those movie theaters, and I would just see popcorn, eat popcorn. So I was like, I cannot do this anymore. I've got to figure out a way to stop. So I turned off my car, turned on the music. I have a car stereo still. Still have a CD player. This was a decade ago. I put a CD into the car. It was a very soothing CD. And I listened to it. And then what I started to do, I think I need to back up a little. Okay. I need to back up to show you. So I started hugging myself. And so the music is going, and I'm like hugging myself, and I'm rocking. And then I'm like, touching myself, and it's okay. I know it sounds really hokey. And I was doing this, and then, hugging some more. Anyhow, I went through a second song and repeated the process. I went into that movie theater. This was more than a decade ago, and I have not had movie popcorn since then. I have not desired it. It just lost its appeal. Now, since I'm a journalist, I then was like, how did that work? Like, that was amazing. Oh my God. So what I discovered is and I was also humming. So what I did was I was combining hugging, humming, rocking, and then even some rubbing or whatever. And all of those techniques, each technique in and of itself provided benefits. But by combining them all, I was creating this bath of wonderful chemicals, releasing oxytocin and dopamine, and so that's my hug, hum, rock relief process. So
we actually had a guest on late last season, Dr. Teresa Houston from University of Seattle. I think it's the University of Seattle. I hope I got the right school. But she's a kind of neuroscientist, and she was talking about that exact same thing, that, we benefit so much from hugging others, others hugging us, but we get just that same benefit from self-hugging. Yeah. And so we forget about that. We feel like we're so isolated and alone, but we have two arms, most of us, hopefully. And, we can use those arms to self-soothe and to comfort ourselves. And maybe if we can't hug ourselves, we can still hum to ourselves. We can rock ourselves. That's a great little lesson for us.
If you can just do them all. Now, here's the thing. So let's say you're out and about. Okay, you're tempted. You're at a party, and your next door neighbor or your neighbor down the street offers this delicious dessert. You're dying to have this dessert. You've been eating well for a week, and that you're about to you want a huge portion of that dessert. So what you could do is you could just take a little brief time out. You can, I don't know, if you got, ear pods or whatever, you can, or even if you don't hear music, you could pretend you're hearing music, and you could literally go to the restroom or just take a little brief walk, 30-second walk, or you can even stand still. See, I got my arms under me. Nobody knows what I'm doing. It looks like I'm cold, or it looks like I'm a snob. But you can literally do this, and it just looks like maybe you're fidgety or whatever. So you can do this around other people. That's what's so cool about it. And you can still get benefits. And, it calms you down. It just lowers your cortisol. It makes you happier, calmer. And I dare say, that dessert will be less appealing.
Well, and the beauty of it too, if your arms are wrapped around you, you can't hold a plate and a fork.
That's a good point.
So just put yourself in a self-administered straitjacket and you won't eat.
You also could put your hands behind your back and just kind of,
Sure.
it's like your little
Yeah.
straitjacket. But seriously, I really delved into the research on this, and it was just fascinating how
Wow.
beneficial all of this can be. So I really did seek to make sure that all tactics that I present are, fast and easy and powerful.
Before we continue, I want to take a brief moment to highlight an affiliate brand that supports the work we do here. As always, this podcast isn't sponsored. Affiliate partnerships simply help us keep producing meaningful conversations around aging well. One product line I've personally vetted and believe in is Primadine from Oxford HealthSpan. Their commitment to purity, scientific rigor, and thoughtful formulation stands out, and I use their products as part of my own wellness practice. If you want to support the podcast while exploring Primadine for yourself, you can find the link in the show notes. I think that hugging of yourself too and the rocking and humming to yourself is also kind of reassuring to ourselves that we're telling ourselves that we matter and that temptation is something that's driving us to something that we don't want to be, and that we're good where we are, and just to just, it's okay to be tempted, but it's okay not to partake in it.
Well, I think you raised a really, really good point. It's okay to be tempted.
Right.
And then you can just kind of, step outside yourself and look in and go, oh, okay, I'm tempted. Huh, that's interesting. I wonder why I'm tempted. Just kind of stepping outside of yourself can help you to not react like Pavlov's dog.
All right.
Which is what I was. I was like, see popcorn, eat popcorn.
So how can people recover for not just from a bad week, but years of unhealthy patterns? I mean, you seem to have recovered pretty quickly. I don't know if we talked about how quickly you recovered after your mom's passing, but...
It wasn't that quickly. I mean, it took me months. It didn't take years, but it took me years to put the book together. It took me years to figure out, how can I pass this information on to other people so that they can. So I talk about basically, I did the legwork for you. So, you don't need to suffer for years. Just, I took it all on for you. I did all the work for you. So that you could bounce back way more quickly than I could. I don't know how long it took. I mean, you know how it goes. You do really well, and then you slip, and then you do well, and then you slip. But that's okay. You bounce back each time. So as I mentioned, I didn't work out as much last month, but hey, I need to give myself compassion. My back was hurting me. It was really difficult for me to work out. And I'll tell you, oh boy, the sleep you get after you work out is so much better than if you don't.
Oh, yeah. So that brings me to a question about aging well. What does that mean to you personally?
I didn't mention this to you earlier, but I love the title of your podcast. It's really,
thank you.
It's just a great title. I think aging well means that you have come to the place where you respect and love and cherish your body, because you know that is your one and only precious body, and you need that body to get you through life. And so the first part of aging well, I think, is to treat your body with the respect that it deserves. Aging well also is just, when you age well, you can just do all these fun things that you couldn't do if you weren't aging well. If you were like dealing with, whatever diseases. And there is, I sometimes forget to mention this, okay? Which is kind of like, how could I forget that? But so I need to mention this. You will age better and you will age well if you don't eat ultra-processed carbs and a bunch of sugar. The more junk foods you eat, the more you're going to age. And I'm not making that up. There is tons of substantive research that shows you eat a bunch of sugar or ultra-processed carbs, and it can lead to heart disease and cancer and type 2 diabetes and Alzheimer's disease. And I'm like, every week or two, there's yet another study that talks about it. No, there was just something this week again about, and we've heard this a lot, that, eating junk food is like the new smoking. And you will age well if you eat well. And by well, I mean, and again, you pick however you want to eat, but, wholesome, unprocessed as much as possible, foods that pop out of the ground or grow on trees or roam on the range, organic, and you're going to age better. I interviewed 3 or 4 times. I interviewed Jack LaLanne.
Oh, yeah.
And I even presented him with this award too. And oh my goodness. So he was about 90. I don't know exactly how old he was when I interviewed him, but he was probably in his 90s. And he was like, "Hey, Connie, and now let me show you what exercise we're going to do. And okay, let's go down and let's go up and let's go down." He's like in his 90s, and he just loved life, and he was amazing. And it was such an honor and pleasure to be able to interview him. Anyhow, that's aging well, right?
Yes, that is. Yeah, it's funny. You got to age well to age well. I never put those together like that. That, if we're not doing the things to age well, we're not going to age well.
What does aging well to you mean?
I think it's a lot of what you said. To me, it's not longevity. And I think there's a huge problem in society right now where we're really pushing this kind of longevity message. We have the Brian Johnsons out there that want to live to 140, but there's no mention of the quality of life or the quality of relationships in that life in that 140 years. And so if we're not living with vitality, contributing to society, living with what I call a big P purpose, where you're, living with purpose, then you're not really aging well. And so we promote on this podcast what my friend Jay from high school labeled as the SPIES model. I used to call it well-centered fitness. Now we call it SPIES because it's the spiritual, physical, intellectual, emotional, and social categories or dimensions of well-being. And I always just put it in that order. And he pointed out to me, he's like, you always put it in that order. Do you know that spells SPIES? I didn't know that, but now that I know that, we're going to call it the SPIES model. But I find, to me, aging well, obviously it's being physically fit and healthy as we can be. But that spiritual piece of knowing that there's something greater than self, being more other-centered, having community. We started out with, we had 4 pillars starting this podcast. It was, if you want to be healthy, exercise and be physically active, eat a healthy diet, maintain a healthy body composition, and don't smoke. But we've since added, proper sleep hygiene and, most importantly, purposeful social connections. And I think all of that has to fit together in order to age well. So aging well is just living this moment with purpose and intention and with as best quality as you can. And it's not about longevity. It's not about the number of years, because if I die tomorrow, is that a failed life because I'm only not even 63 yet, but my goal, I certainly want to go to Brian Johnson's funeral. That's one of my goals. I want to live that long. But more importantly, I want to kind of, do something that's going to be memorable in my life, and, live with what I would label as extraordinary, with
Right.
parentheses around extra, where, life can be rather ordinary, but you make it extraordinary by what you do with the quality of what you're kind of put on this earth to do. You don't have to be a celebrity. And as we look at the news lately, I don't know that I'd want to be a celebrity. But, I want to, as a college professor, impact as many people as I can. I might not, save any lives, but I might cause a student to go to med school that might find the cure for cancer. And so it's just, to me, it's living purposefully and living intentionally and living as vital a life as I can.
Yeah. And I would add to that in order to live that vital life, you need to eat vital foods.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you can't live well if you're not living well. If you're not living healthfully. And, there are people who are, sick with diseases that are beyond their capacity. They've done everything they possibly could to live a healthy life, and, injury, accident, the environment that we're in that we have no control over can cause disease in us. But we can do as much as we can by eating well, being physically active, being socially engaged, being curious, doing all those things to minimize those risks. And if we do fall into those situations, the quality of our time spent in that condition, if it is terminal, it's terminal. But if, you can have a year to live, and you can live that well, or you can live that poorly.
There was, watching my mother die, while it was the most grueling thing I'd ever been through, it was because she became like 3 different moms. She became cancer mom, loving mom, that was nice. And she became this like vital, like action-oriented mom. I mean, seriously, she's like in a wheelchair and she knows she's dying. She chose not to take any medication, but she was what I call brave mom. And there was something about watching that brave mom. Like, it made all the other, the cancer mom, she was difficult because, as the cancer spread, she just wasn't herself. But watching her, I just was awestruck. I would just, and she we went to the farmer's market and she got just so excited and delighted when she found these crooked squashes. And and we went to the opera together and she was just in heaven listening to these opera singers. And it was absolutely fascinating to watch her that way, and knowing that she knew her days were numbered and she just reveled in whatever it was she's doing. She so lived life to the fullest. So I think I learned a lot from watching that. That's the way that we need to live. But anyhow,
now, did she always live that way, or was that something that was awakened in her as she faced her mortality?
Well, she probably did. Maybe I didn't notice it as much. I spent a lot of time with her. I moved to be, near her. So, I was an adult. I was living my own life in another city. So, she always had an enthusiasm, but I perceived it as this renewed enthusiasm.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the case, we should all approach whatever we do with that enthusiasm. We're only going to be
Yeah.
here once.
Right. We don't
So
want to
what,
wait until the end. We want
so
to start.
what activity just charges you up, just gets you so excited? And don't talk about food, please. We're not talking about we're not going to talk about the pecan pie or whatever. We're talking about like what do you just really, 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 really love? That's what you can get excited about. And that will help you have a life well lived, right?
Yes, absolutely. I love that. So you might have just kind of touched on that, but what is one simple, compassionate first step someone can take today to start bouncing back?
I think we talked about it, but I can certainly come up with some other stuff. I think let me talk. I'll tell you another one. Okay, so and you're certainly in an area of the country where you like to be outdoors a lot, I imagine. So when you're in nature, if you can, and if you can't, get on the internet. There's something called fractals, and fractal patterns occur in nature. So they occur in leaves and trees and rivers and oceans, and they're these recurring patterns, and they're repeated. And there was some absolutely fascinating research. And you know what? I think that researcher was out of Oregon. Yeah, I think that researcher. I have to email you his info. Anyhow, what he discovered, like 30 seconds, I believe it was, of out in nature and watching fractals, boom, it's going to make you feel better or calm you down. So one of the things, if you like nature, and I hope you do, and we all do, there's something about just being outdoors, and it just immediately calms you and centers you and makes you happier. 60 seconds in nature it was. And fractals have actually been called the fingerprints of nature. You need to meet this guy.
Yeah,
I
I'll have
swear,
to
he's
look
in
for.
Oregon. I'll have to give you his info.
We'll get him on the podcast.
He's like the fractal. He's like the big fractal researcher, like world renowned. But that's one tactic.
Yeah. So, wow, we've covered a lot of really great stuff in here. I think forgiveness is another one of those things that we really have to
yes.
kind of approach in order to,
Yes.
one of the first steps that we can really do to bounce back. We just have to say,
Yeah.
okay,
I'll give
yesterday is gone.
I'll give you a quick forgiveness process, if that's okay.
It sounds good.
Okay. So, I mean, look, you can do whatever you think works for you, whatever your religion is or whatever, but there's this Hawaiian practice, and it's called Ho'oponopono. Very, very interesting. All you do is you say, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. Now, some people may go, well, I really don't want to forgive XYZ person, or I don't really love that person. So you can just think, well, you love, God, or you love, nature. But anyhow, that's actually a very fast, effective way to forgive. All you need to do is you think about that person or even yourself. And you just say that, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. That's Ho'oponopono. It's fast. You don't need to go anywhere. You don't need to go into a religious, building. It's very fast. You can repeat it in your head.
And I've heard it said that, forgiveness is really for ourselves. It's not for that person.
Right.
It's us letting go of the baggage that they've put on us and just separating us from that and moving on.
Yeah.
So, well, is there anything we failed to talk about today? We've covered a lot. This was a very fun conversation.
Well, I think that I want to encourage people who may feel discouraged. And we touched earlier on how, you can bounce back boldly at any time. But you don't have to, if you're not feeling up to it today, you don't have to stay there. You can choose to change. You can choose to feel better. And again, some of these tactics, wow, they work fast. Even if you're not in the mood. Like, who of us hasn't had the experience like, oh God, I just don't want to go to the gym. I'm exhausted. I want to go back to sleep. But you force yourself to, you probably talk to people about this all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you go to the gym and like an hour later, you're like, oh my God, I feel so great. So, you just, even if you don't believe some of the stuff, you can just get started. So I just encourage people to think it can get better. You can feel better. You can be better.
Now, one of my mantras is be your best today, be better tomorrow.
I like that. I guess I need a mantra, don't I? Well, I think one of my favorite phrases is, you want to eat better so you feel better.
There you go.
I guess that's my mantra. One of my mantras.
Yeah. I have many, so.
May I tell people where to find me?
Yes, please. And where they can find the book as well. That was going to be my next question in there. We didn't want to forget that.
So my website is just Connie B as in boy. I'm not a boy, but ConnieB.com. What happened is there's another woman, she's a jeweler, her name is Connie Bennett, and she had the ConnieBennett.com. But I like the ConnieB.com better because you don't have to remember how to spell Bennett. So it's just ConnieB.com. As far as my most recent book, it's pretty easy to remember. I blew my diet. Now what? That's the title. And I love hearing from people. I would love to hear from listeners. I would love to hear from readers. I'd love to read your reviews. And, I may not always reply, but I do read stuff. So I love connecting with people like, is what I'm doing helping you? I hope so. That's my goal.
So I can see the person, I've blown my diet, now what? I remember an episode of the Aging Well podcast where they had a woman on. What was that book title?
I don't know. So, I haven't Googled just I blew my diet. I've Googled I blew my diet. Now what? We'll see. Probably I blew my diet will pop my book. Yeah. I hope it does.
I'm sure it will. So I hope the readers run out and buy that. I hope they don't blow their diet, but it's a good resource to have in case a friend blows their diet, right? Nobody saw my air quotes there if they're listening to the podcast.
Yes.
So, well, Connie, this was great. I really appreciate you sharing your story with us, and I'm looking forward to hearing from our listeners and viewers how they like the book.
That would be great. So let's help them to age well.
That sounds good. And if they're not aging well today and they blew it, well, they can, start tomorrow.
Right.
Actually, They don't have to wait until tomorrow to start. I mean,
that's true.
You blew it, you start right now.
Yeah, but, a lot of people want to wait till the next day.
Right. Yeah, they blow their diet. They want to finish that cake before they...
start the next meal.
Yep.
I've got something really not... people may not like what I want to say because I don't want to be wasteful. But let's say you did buy that box of cookies or whatever. You don't have to eat the whole box of cookies. If you ate 2 and all of a sudden you're like, what am I doing? You could donate them to charity or put them in the trunk of your car. Keep them away from you, like ration yourself. So yeah, you could start the next meal.
Probably the thing not to do, though, is take them next door to your neighbor and give them to them, because then they're blowing their diet. Now it just
and then they'll be angry at you. Yeah.
So, well, this was great, Connie. Just keep doing what you're doing and keep aging well.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, Jeff.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Aging Well podcast. Please like, subscribe, or follow, and share this episode with a friend. And be sure to visit the affiliate links in the description below. Thank you for listening, and until next time, keep aging well.